Welcome to the Leadership Purpose with Dr. Robin podcast. I'm your host, Robin L. Owens, PhD, and this is where we dive in each week to give advice, tools, and tips for high-achieving, purpose-minded women who've written nonfiction books and want to amplify their message beyond the book. I'm a college professor, and when I'm not doing that, I am speaking, coaching, mentoring, and teaching high-achieving women who have written books how to use their books to make a bigger difference, have more impact, and purpose. Okay, let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Purpose with Dr. Robin podcast. I'm so glad you're here and listening into the podcast. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day, your busy life, your busy schedule to listen into the podcast. And today I'm talking with Alina Haitz. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Alina. She's a speaker and the author of a meditative book of reflections on nature. And the title of the book is I Am. And she is the creator of a new stress management system for busy working parents. And she's a speaker and she speaks about the importance of extreme self-care, self-compassion, mindfulness, and overall mental well-being at work. And she wanted us to know that she is a working parent and the voice of the everyday professional. And her dynamic and motivational speaking style is a catalyst for change for workplace environments. And her mission is to create a culture of wellness in organizations and to share that message of hope and healing. Welcome, Alina Haitz.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here, Dr. Robin. I'm grateful. Thank you.
I'm so glad you're here, and feel free to call me Robin.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, I give credit where credit's due.
And I appreciate that. I do. I appreciate that. So you heard me read your kind of official bio, right? But why don't you tell us in your own words first about who you are, anything you want to say about yourself, and then about your work.
Sure. My story is an interesting one, as we all have an interesting story to our own selves. Basically, I wrote this book in 2014 after several years of healing. I felt that the book was more like a labor of love. It just flew out of me in about 6 weeks. And it was really about,
Wow.
heal. Yeah, it's a one day at a time meditative book. It's very simple. But the purpose of the book was to give people a daily dose of hope and healing, because I suffered for so many years with mental illness. From age 21 to age 25, I was in and out of psychiatric hospitals. So now I'm 43 and more than half my life lived experience. And this book is really to connect people to Mother Nature. So to remember that they're not alone and that they're one of many, and really to give hope to those who are in grief. Really anyone who's healing from anything, which is basically every human being, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it connects us to Mother Earth, nature, whatever you want to call it. Some people relate to it as like a higher being. But the book's intention was really just to give hope, because I wish I had the hope when I was 21 in a psychiatric unit.
Yes, that makes sense. So thank you for sharing your story and creating a book to help others who might have, find it useful depending on whatever they're going through. Appreciate that. So after your experience, you said you were 21 and this is fairly recent. What prompted you then to write the book?
So 21, and I wrote the book, I guess it was 34. So it took me a long time to come to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even just now, I'm kind of out of the bipolar 1 disorder closet, if you want to say so.
Mm-hmm.
I really haven't gotten on a lot of podcasts sharing that I have bipolar disorder and that I live this like really great life. And I talk to people about mental illness and mental health. I don't really love the word illness because I think it's about mental health and mental wellness, right? Let's take the positive.
Yes.
So the book was really just for me. And then my husband said to me, you need to do something with this.
Oh.
He's like, follow through with it. And I said, okay. And I really didn't know I never thought that I would be speaking about it, almost 10 years later. And, I use it as a tool when I go into workplaces, when I speak to professionals as yourself. More than anything, it's just a part of an extension of who I am. I'm so many more things than bipolar. I'm a mother, I'm a working woman, I'm a minority woman, I'm a woman with a disability, but all those things are important and that's who I am, but it's not really it's part of me.
Mm-hmm.
And the book is all about inclusion, about remembering that you are just like everyone else, just like the pig. There's a pig chapter, right? Just like the sky, the sun. The pig is the pig. We labeled the pig, but the pig doesn't judge himself or herself or they self, right? As a pig, right? Themselves. The pig just is the pig. I know it sounds really funny, right? Because we're talking about a pig, but I mean, the sunflower is not sitting there saying, well, that rose is much prettier than me. And, you know, so if we took a lesson from Mother Nature and really went outside and said, you know what, the sky isn't complaining that the sun comes up in the morning and the moon isn't up in the morning and why he has that and why she has that, right? And
Yeah.
being content and happy with who we are in this moment.
Yes, I love that. And I love that you use nature to tell that story because you could have done lots of other things. Do you have a particularly close relationship with nature, or what made you use nature as a way to talk about this? Because you could have used other analogies.
Yes, I was back and forth if I should use God. And to be quite frank with you, for several years in my early recovery from mental illness, I had a anger with God. And I think all of us at some point, or some people are agnostic, some people don't relate to God, but most people like going to a part of Mother Nature if it's through hiking, if it's going to the beach. You live in, California, going to the beach. I live in New York, going into, let's say something really, it could be like the Central Park, walking the Central Park and seeing the beautiful flowers. Most humans can connect to that. But sometimes when we use we use the word God, which I do believe in God. And when I use the label, sometimes it's an immediate turn off for people. There's an unconscious bias peeps in.
Mhm.
Oh, God that, from my childhood, my mother, my father. So I wanted to remove that from the equation.
Yes, that makes sense. I like that you use nature. I have a special connection with nature. And when I'm always in a park, and I mentioned to you before we started recording, I lived in New York because we were talking about how you're in New York. And when I lived in Manhattan, I used to go to Riverside Park on a regular basis and just admiring the fact that we had this beautiful greenery in the middle of a bustling city like that to bring
Mm,
a whole new atmosphere. And so wherever I live, I'm always, in fact, even here now in Los Angeles, I live uh, like about a 2.5 minute walk from a park. So
nice.
nature, I really connect to that. So, um, all right. So with the book, you talked about the connection to nature and to bring hope. What would you say is the primary message? I mean, that's the message to connect, but is there more?
I haven't read my own book in a while. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
Well, some people have written a book and they move on and they do other work and
That's right.
lots of things get in the
If I
way.
had to tell you what the main message is that I love myself. I'm healed and protected. That's the main point of the book, is that I'm not alone. You're okay. You are loved. Not just love yourself first so you can start loving on everyone else.
Yes.
I am good enough. Don't
Yes.
you remember that SNL skit with Michael Jordan? I'm good enough. And gosh darn it, people like me. I'm aging myself. It's he's sitting to the therapist and he's looking at the mirror, and the therapist says to him, it's a whole skit on SNL. It's like, I'm good enough. And gosh darn it, people like me. And if we laugh at it because we understand it. It's comedy, right? It's
Hmm.
relatable.
Hmm.
And it just takes so much time, especially for women, for us to just like ourselves. And
Yes.
somebody like me who has this like stigmatized illness, I mean, it took me like many years to be like, okay, you have this illness. Yes, you have other things too, and it took me time to wrap my arms around that. I'm a New Yorker, and some people don't like New Yorkers, especially in certain parts of the country. But the bipolar and just it took a long time. But I also feel as women, sometimes I think society, I don't want to, it's like you don't love yourself too much. Don't love yourself. Don't love on yourself too much. Don't talk too highly of yourself, Robin, because you might sound arrogant. You
Yes.
might sound like you're too good. And I don't find that other men have that issue. Most men, I don't want to label everyone, but maybe some men do. But
Hmm.
I find societally wise, like women don't advocate for themselves as much, or maybe I'll talk about myself. I did not advocate for myself as a woman
Hmm.
for several years until I felt like I loved myself enough to
Hmm.
do so.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And so now you're a speaker and what topics do you talk about when you're speaking?
I talk about all the topics that I need to learn more about, right?
Ah, that's the way to do it.
Self compassion, that's a big one because it's just so important to have compassion for ourselves, especially as working women in the workplace. I'm a minority woman as well, women with disability. It's important for me to have self compassion and remember who I am. I also talk about self care as from an ethical perspective.
Mm.
I talk to a lot of healthcare professionals about it's actually they take an oath. Healthcare professionals take an oath
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
that they will practice self care.
Oh,
Isn't that interesting? It's like a
yeah.
code of conduct.
Oh, wow.
So I during the pandemic, I did a lot of that self
Wow.
care, overall mental health, mental wellness, and really, I don't try to do a talk on stigma.
Hmm.
Just me showing up breaks the stigma. I
Yes.
would hope.
Yes. I think so. I think so. Yeah, for sure. And you were talking earlier about using the language of health and the positive. And I heard someone say recently that we say mental health and it is a form of brain health
Absolutely.
because it's
I, and
really what's
I
going
I'm
on in your
working
brain.
on I actually say mental health because that's what my audience understands.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I follow many doctors, Dr. Amen, Dr. Ramsey, who is a big doctor in the city, who is a psychiatrist. And they all talk about brain health. And it is brain health because I have a biological
Yes.
condition of the brain,
Yeah.
but we call it mental health.
Yes, I do. I appreciate that when I heard that because I think that was the first time here recently that I heard brain health and I was like, oh, that makes so much more sense to me because
Actually,
it helps us connect to because mental, we don't see it. We don't know what that is. But brain, we haven't seen one, but we've seen images and we kind of know it's a thing in our head, right? But
yes. And
mental is out there, abstract. Yeah.
some of the well-renowned psychiatrists, they do brain scans on people who have mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
We have a long way to go with mental illness. It's a rather new thing. When I was diagnosed in 2001, it was basically still called manic depression.
Mm.
It's come a long way. People coming out of I call out of the closet, people inching out of the closet. Now it's a lot different than 2001.
Yeah. 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 I'm glad that things are changing and moving forward in that way.
Me too.
All right. So, I think I mentioned this before we started talking. The podcast is for what I call high achieving women, right? Responsible, ambitious, doing all the things, right? And they've written a book.
Mm.
So you have a wealth of experience from your personal and professional life. What would you say to that woman who is, responsible at home, responsible at work? Everybody comes to her. And on top of that, she's written a book. So think about her in her author self, this person that has written a book. What's something from your experience, either personally or professionally, that you'd like to share in a form of support to her?
So, as an author in 2014, I was very quiet about my book. I didn't tell that many people. It was more of like I said, a labor of love. And I selectively shared it. And I really, so first of all, stand in your power. Your book is your power. It's your message. It's an extension of who you are as a woman. Stand in it, own it, because you put it together. You deserve it. You own it, owe it to yourself. And the second thing I would say, this is more on a personal level, is you can't do it alone. It doesn't just take a village, it takes yourself asking for help, setting perimeters, around what you can and cannot do, or what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. And where is your energy going? If you're doing things that are draining you, think about what you can do to make it better, or focus on the joy. I mean, there's so many things we can say to working women, but like, really, how much can working women do when they have all the things?
Right.
Remember who you are.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And I'm sure they do too. So now, you know the podcast is Leadership Purpose. So purpose has to come up into the conversation, right?
Absolutely. Waiting for you. No, I'm kidding.
So when you think about purpose, do you think it's important for people to have purpose in what you do, or at least a sense of purpose? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
So sometimes people mistake work and purpose.
Mm,
So that's the number one thing. So I do work at a university. I work as a director of a continuing education and professional studies. Okay, so I do that alongside all the things that we just talked about. My purpose is to be the best Alina version as I can be. And if it's showing up at Malloy University, or if it's showing up at an agency that I'm doing work for, or an organization, a nonprofit, or school, having a speaking engagement, or my book, right? Talking about my book. My job is to be me. That's my purpose. My job is not to be Malloy University's, puppet, or this organization's puppet. My job is to show up authentically, the best I can in this very moment. And that's what purpose is. Purpose is not about a paycheck. I don't even call my business a business. I call it my impact space.
ooh,
And there's actually a woman who coined this, and my coach talks about this all the time. Impact is the new currency, right? So my job is to be in my impact space. And it's at work, working with teachers, or if it's with our son or with my husband making dinner. It's to be the best person I can be. And that, I feel, is leading within through the heart to others. And it shines.
yes, yes, yes. Of course, I resonate with that. Of course, I would. All right. So now, is there anything that maybe I haven't thought to ask you that you'd like to share now that we've been talking for a while? That, oh, something's coming to mind. I would like to share this. Is there anything like that before we tell people how they can get in touch with you and get your book and all that? Is there something you'd like to share?
Sure. I'd like to share that if you're feeling exhausted, drained, not enough, depressed, sad, anxiety, any of those feelings, that it can shift. Because I've been depressed. I've been full of anxiety. I've been exhausted. I've been drained. And sometimes I have moments like that too. And we can shift. There's oh it may not be like that all the time. It can shift. And I want to give hope to the working woman that they can lead with purpose, to not give up on their purpose. If they're breathing, which they are, if they're listening to this podcast, they have purpose. That's really what I wanted to
Thank
say.
you. Thank you for sharing that. All right. So now I'm imagining there might be some people say, well, where can I get the book, or how can I hear more about Alina, or how can I be in touch? How can they be in touch with you?
Absolutely. I really just I'm all out there, and I'm rebranding myself in 2024. And I'm still out there. I'm on Instagram almost every day at Alina R Haitz, HAITZ, ALINARHAITZ. I have a former comedian, so sometimes I crack myself up on Instagram. My websites, it's all going to be, I'm sure, connected to the podcast. I try to keep it simple, AlinaRHeitz.com.
Okay.
So I'd love to hear from anybody if they have a question, or just want to, message me on Instagram. Feel free.
That's great. And we'll be sure to put that in the show notes so people could have that. All right, Alina, I really appreciate you sharing from your heart and your experience and doing this work of bringing hope to the world. It's important work. So thank you for taking the time and being here today. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Okay. And if you're trying to get in touch with me, I'm on social media. You can contact me mostly on LinkedIn, but I'm all over the socials. at Robin L. Owens, PhD, Robin L. Owens, PhD. And if you happen to be an author, or if you don't call yourself an author, you call yourself as someone who's written a book, and you've been thinking about how to amplify the message of your book, and you've probably been thinking about a course, I can help you do that. I combine my passion for teaching in the university and help you turn your book into a course so you can expand your message. And you can find my free training over at createmasterfulcourses.com, createmasterfulcourses.com, and that'll get you on your way. And until next time, this is Dr. Robin. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Leadership Purpose with Dr. Robin podcast. If you enjoyed it, head on over and rate and subscribe so you never miss an episode. New episodes drop every week, and I can't wait to hang out with you again soon. Meanwhile, this is Dr. Robin signing off. See you next time.